Don't tell and sell, educate and resonate. When you educate in a way that is addressing an issue your audience is trying to solve for, you're relevant. So when you educate and resonate, you will get on the radar. If you continually educate, you will stay on the radar and ultimately get selected. If you're telling and selling, meaning just giving the pitch and doing the technical talk, you're going to get left in the dust.
This is Personal Brand Blueprint with me, your host, Dave Polikoff, where I sit down with proven experts who've built successful personal brands to break down how they did it. So you know the exact blueprint on how to build a personal brand that attracts attention, builds trust, and converts your dream clients online. We get super specific. I'm talking real-time feedback on what social channels to be on, what marketing strategies to implement, and what content is capturing and converting the most attention on social. How do we do this? Because Personal Brand Blueprint is powered by ZenPost, your content partner for research-driven strategy and done-for-you video that helps you be seen, be trusted, and win more business. Whether you need more guidance on how to create client-attracting content yourself, or you need a professional creative team to create and publish your content for you, ZenPost is your strategic content partner. If you're ready to increase your visibility, followers, and leads through video content, then head over to zenpost.com today to learn more. Now, let's get into the show. Why even have a personal brand to begin with, right? It's so much energy and time to commit to creating content and crafting these messages and publishing and keeping up with it. You already have a business to run. Now you have to run a second personal business. So the answer to that question is what we are going to really dive into today with my good friend Liz Harr from Hinge, who is all about the analytics and data behind why investing into our personal brands is important. So Liz, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
So let's start off with just kind of give us a little background about yourself. Like, what is Hinge? What are you guys doing, and who do you do it for?
Hinge is a marketing and branding agency exclusively for the professional services space. And that's a very unique space within the B2B market because everybody in professional services has something intangible to sell, expertise. So we work with clients who are trying to understand what's the best pathway to smart growth. And we believe it's through paying careful attention to your marketing and your branding. And that's where we help.
Yeah, yeah, that's the always the kind of the tricky part for the kind of education, information brands out there, where you can't really make that. Typically, it's more difficult for them to make that look sexy online versus, Coca-Cola having that physical bottle there that, someone's sweating and drinking from. How do you make like information, more tangible online? So I'm interested in that. What are some of the initial ways that we can think about in terms of taking our education and making that more visible online?
Well, it's really figuring out who your audience is and where do these people learn and gather information. For some, it's going to be they are avid attenders of or attendees of conferences. Even in a physical space, if you have that dynamic, they still go online in certain places like LinkedIn. They will, if they ever catch wind of your company name, the first thing they do is check out your website. So, but the common places really are a reserved and protected spot on your firm's website for thought leadership. Don't mix it in with the news. Let people find what they're looking for. LinkedIn is by far the most popular social media space for B2B and professional services for serious dialogue. And then getting published in journals and digital journals and being on podcasts, hosting webinars, however your audience learns, that's where you need to be.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the most interesting things is when a new client will come to me and be like, well, we're just going to publish across every platform, right? And I'm like, well, we can, but it's not meaning that you're going to be successful on every platform because your client is probably not on every platform, right? They're going to they want to learn, they want to make purchasing decisions on specific types of platforms. And that's why I love LinkedIn, is because it's a platform where you're going into it, you're logging in with the mindset of business and learning and networking. So it's a great B2B platform. How did you get into this space? How'd you get into marketing and kind of the analytics behind marketing as well?
I have a very untraditional path to marketing. So in grad school, I came out with a master's in economics, and so I really loved analytics, though. I mean, that's always been my thing. But as a student of economics, I thought for sure I was going to follow this path over here, and here I am in marketing and branding. Um, I think, what I always tell people is have eyes wide open, ears wide open for doors that you never really think about as presenting opportunities. For me, once I caught wind of what Hinge does, and it's not just marketing and talking to people about emails, it's about helping leaders of organizations understand the most important aspect of their company, their brand, and how to build it in a way that posits them for growth. So it's super rewarding, actually, when you think about it. And although it's a non traditional path, it makes perfect sense when I think about my background.
Yeah. So I'm sensing, so the economics part, I assume big analytical, good with obviously numbers and data and such. And I know Hinge has a strong kind of analytical data backed approach to its marketing. Can you talk us through when we're talking about the analytics and data of marketing, what are some of the things that you guys are studying and doing reports on that is informing some of the decisions you make from like a strategy standpoint?
One of the things we do year after year, and we just crossed our 10-year milestone, so it was a very big deal, is our annual high growth study. And what we do is we study the behavior of firms in the professional services marketplace across all different sectors. And we study how they treat marketing. What techniques are they investing in? What are the ones they're ditching? What are the trends in how they use marketing for growth and profitable growth? And so that's a thing we release every single year. Right now, we're working on our 2026 version, actually, as we speak. And I just love it because when I talk with busy leaders, they're really not interested in things like, you know, talking nitty gritty details on how to build an email campaign or whether they should do paid advertising or not. I mean, at the end of the day, someone on their team has to decide that. But what the leaders are interested in is what is going to move the needle? Where do I need to focus and how do I do that? So we use our data to ground that decision making and the advisory that we provide. And then suddenly their protective veil starts to come off and they think, okay, I I'm going to invest in email because the data says it works at this level for this reason.
Yeah, I think
But
it's
a big one we do.
an important point here because I think so many people, there's so much online in terms of like, I have the next golden solution as to how to grow online, how to make more sales, how to get more leads. Everyone's got their new strategy in how it's done. And I think there's a little bit of fatigue that happens with people. They've been burned by um, agencies or just individuals, courses before, and they go, you know what? Never mind, until the next one comes along and makes the same promise, and then they opt into that one. But actually having the data to point to and say, like, this isn't just guesswork, this is data backed strategy, makes them feel much more at ease for moving forward. And it's yeah, so it's good that you guys are doing that. What are some of the things maybe that you can tease if there's anything coming out in this 2026 report about some of the maybe trends or highlights that are going on with what seems to be working in the marketing space right now?
Well, one that I find very interesting is, everybody knows you have to produce thought leadership. I mean, that's like a no brainer. You need to be, if you sell expertise, promote your expertise and do it through thought leadership. So everybody's on board with that. But then the question is, what kind and what should I be writing about? So, one of the things that we find high growth firms have been investing in for a couple of years and are getting a ton of leverage out of is a specific type of content. And here we are talking about research. It's research. So firms, there are certain firms who have been doing original research on something of interest to their audience, something that their audience is trying to solve for. And when you produce content around that's grounded in that research year after year, all of a sudden you've got this crazy high performing marketing engine, because nobody can replicate that, right? Everybody's out there kind of talking about the same themes, talking about the same things, doing the same things. But when you come out into the world and educate with something that people cannot replicate, original research, you're so differentiated in a meaningful way.
A bit of a meta take there too, being that you guys do exactly that. What what's kind of the best way then to use that research? What is it, like an annual report? Should that be kind of dripped out in emails? Like what's the best way to kind of capitalize on the research that you're investing into?
Well, that's the other trend we're seeing is high growth firms have become very proficient at using that single piece of content and repurposing it into multiple other forms. So to answer your first question, should it be annual? Should it be quarterly? It really depends on what you are studying and producing research around and how quickly that changes. But that aside, what we're seeing high growth firms do is take a singular piece of content and produce multiple podcast episodes or webinars off of it. We're seeing them produce newsletters that report on a different facet of the research. We're seeing them write books off of it. So, from a single piece of content, you can create multiple other forms, and the magic unfolds.
One point I think that's important to highlight for it then is identifying what to do the research on so that you are getting the result that you want. Is there a strategy or a way to identify where you should be investing your time into research so that you know when you go to translate that into a annual report, newsletter, etc., that it's hitting the mark, that it's something that your audience actually is desiring?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, you need to do a little bit of research before you do the research. And so the last thing you want to do is invest your time and budget in something that already has an answer or already has multiple voices in it. But your starting point is, what does my audience care about? When your decision makers, the people who sign the checks at the end of the day and agree to work with you and hire your firm, what keeps them up at night? And how do they talk about what keeps them up at night? So you can gather this intel through BD conversations. And when you're working with clients, you can weave that into the conversation. That's your starting point. Not what you're passionate about and you care about. I mean, that's great, but what does your audience care about? And then within that universe, do a little bit of research and see, are there multiple voices talking about this already? If so, it doesn't mean you run away from it, but it just means you have to really do some soul searching to make sure you have a unique angle to discuss, a unique viewpoint. If not, it's probably not a good topic. The other thing is look at the competitive landscape and see, are competitors talking about this, or would you be filling a void and nobody's talking about it yet? So you have none of these things, none of these findings would make you say yay or nay. It's just it helps inform the direction that you go in.
Yeah, what I love about this too is this is very well aligned with a content strategy that I apply for my clients, being that, as you mentioned, start with like a core desire. And ideally, it's a core desire that, yeah, keeps your client up at night. It's one that they're willing to like throw money at in order to solve, right? And then you are creating some sort of asset, whether it's a report or lead magnet, whatever, that helps them achieve that desire a little bit more easily. And then creating a full content campaign around it so that you're talking about that desire and that topic from multiple different ways. Maybe it's a newsletter, maybe it's videos and LinkedIn posts or whatever. And then you kind of just tease, by the way, I have a full report on this thing. I have a full lead magnet on this thing. Opt in. So yeah, the lead or the research that you're doing ends up being, I think, a strong lead magnet. You have a concept called visible expert, and as personal brands, the visible expert is kind of our number one priority. So, walk us through what for around Hinge. What do you guys define as the visible expert, and how can we become one?
Yeah. So a visible expert is a professional who has not only a reputation, an excellent reputation in their field, but also a high degree of visibility for specialized expertise. In other words, it's the opposite of a generalist. You can be a generalist with a great reputation and you can even be visible, but if you're not visible for specialized expertise, you're not a visible expert. And the whole reason we started talking about this is it actually came out of our research. We didn't just make it up and say everybody should be visible experts now, let's write about it. We actually noticed a trend across high growth firms. There's another body of research we do called Inside the Buyer's Brain, and it's like a companion piece to the high growth study. High growth study talks about what firms are doing. Inside the Buyer's Brain studies what's interesting to buyers, what is their behavior. When we married those two pieces together, we started seeing that buyers at the very top of their list, even more than price competitiveness, was, do you have the expertise to solve my problem? If you do, you can unseat the incumbent and you can probably even cost a little bit more. I will buy your services. And then we found the high growth firms were actually leveraging that. They were onto it, and they were focusing on marketing that really promoted expertise. So we started digging into this notion, and we found some extraordinary things. For example, billings. Everybody wants to increase their billings. We found that a visible expert who is beyond beyond known in their regional field, these are like the national or internationally known experts, they can earn up to 13 times more than just your average consultant. It's just extraordinary what people will pay for solving their problem. You mentioned fatigue earlier. There's so many look-alike wannabe firms out there who say they'll solve your problem, but all they have are flashy messages, maybe some flashy shiny rock imagery on their website, but there's really no proof beyond that they'll solve your problem. And so showcasing your experts, making them visible by helping them author content, having them be highly visible in LinkedIn, having them be the consistent speakers, networkers, etc. That's really what it takes to move the needle in today's market.
Yeah, you mentioned being more visible in a couple examples there. How, I mean, I think it's for many, sometimes it can be difficult to translate your expertise into a format that your audience will resonate with. I think people are good at having the expertise, but then the translation part is sometimes the most difficult. So, what do you say to those people of how to best translate that expertise into speaking engagement, content, maybe showing up to a podcast? Like, how do we best translate that?
So I think of answering that in two dimensions. One is translate it in a way that your audience speaks. And the reason I say that is because we work with a lot of firms who are very technical and they want to get their expertise out there in a technical way. Don't do that. A true expert is one who can explain an amazingly complex issue in a simplified manner. That is the hallmark of an expert. So if you can, speaking of translating, if you can talk about your expertise in a way that a busy decision maker can digest it, not the person who's going to roll up their sleeves and do the work, that's the name of the game. The other way to answer your question is it's tough because in order to get on the speaking circuit, and a committee who's choosing one keynote speaker and they have a list of 10 people to consider, here's what they're going to do. They're going to go on LinkedIn and look at each of these people's profiles. They're going to see how active each of these people are. Then they're going to go to the website and they're going to look at the bios of each of these people and they're going to see, are there lists of things that these people have published? Have they spoken before? Is there B-roll footage on the website so we can see what is their body language like? Can they command the stage? So what I'm saying here is to be successful in one arena, take speaking, you have to be proficient in other areas. That's why I always say marketing is an engine. You can't operate an engine with just one little piece. Same way with marketing, to be visible and selected as a speaker, you have to have all these other pieces working so that when people judging and vetting you, whether it's a prospective client, whether it's a speaking committee or a publisher of a journal, you've got to show up as an expert in all these other places.
Yeah, that's I think that's the difficult part for many that are highly technical is figuring out how to find those other skills, marketing skills, and translate that. What are I know you have a team at Hinge. What are some of the ways that you guys are maybe individually approaching growing or attracting new opportunities, business opportunities, clients into Hinge from like a personal branding perspective? Like, how are you individually trying to grow your personal brands?
Well, we focus on being visible where our audience is, and we know that they are very active on LinkedIn. So each of us has a very active LinkedIn profile, for example. I mean, Hinge as a company does, but we as individuals have a very active LinkedIn profile. And it isn't just me putting my stuff out there. I try to be a good digital citizen and comment on other people's stuff and share their stuff. If you're in a physical networking room and you're all about you and only you, is anyone going to want to shake your hand? No. So it's the same thing on LinkedIn. No one's going to want to promote you if you don't promote them. So that's one thing we do, is just be very active on LinkedIn and be good digital citizens. The other thing that we do is networking. I mentioned networking a second ago. It's really important to marry all the digital activity with in person to the extent that it exists in your community. Now, some communities might not have active networking circles, but in certain pockets like GovCon, legal, the AEC community, there are lots and lots of great networking communities. And so we invest time in attending those. And lastly, I think from a general perspective, we bring as much authenticity to the table as possible. That's getting eroded quickly by AI, and it kind of sounds trite to even say that because everybody's talking about that, but it's true. So think about your personal brand as not just the expertise that you have and like the subject matter, but how do you personally deliver that? And those two things together is what makes a very powerful personal brand.
Love it. This was great. If there was one thing that you wanted the audience to take away today from what we talked about, just one key message you want them to take home today, what would that be?
I would say, I think I would leave people with the notion of don't tell and sell, educate and resonate. When you educate in a way that is addressing an issue your audience is trying to solve for, you're relevant. So when you educate and resonate, you will get on the radar. If you continually educate, you will stay on the radar and ultimately get selected. If you're telling and selling, meaning just giving the pitch and doing the technical talk, you're going to get left in the dust.
Love it. And if people wanted to check out more about what you got going on or check out Hinge, where should they go?
Go to hingemarketing.com and go to our library. We have tons of free resources available for people to check out. They can see some of the data that we have, and it's a very, very rich repository of information.
Great. Liz, thanks so much for being on today.
Thank you.
See you all on the next episode of Personal Brand Blueprint.